we had a very large trade show that became all-consuming for our organization. We sold that in 2005 for a variety of reasons, which we thought at the time was a good idea. But what we learned later on is that we really sold that huge value proposition component and that trust. The industry really needed a place where they could trust an entity to help them find their business partners. And we did not realize how consequential we were to that experience. So we sold the show. And when we sold the show, we didn't realize how much that would affect the industry and affect us as our ability to support our segment of the chemical sector. We had to weed out our non-compete. And once we did that, we decided we were going to get back in the show business after doing some surveying and things like that, which we did. And we ended up purchasing a show from an independent show organizer. And it has put us right back on the path that we needed. And it has really reinvigorated the organization.
This is Associations Thrive, the podcast celebrating successful associations and their leaders. I'm your host, Joanna Pineda, CEO and Chief Troublemaker at Matrix Group International. Listen in as top association executives tell all, revealing the creative and innovative ways they're increasing membership, generating revenue, nurturing engagement, and reimagining their organizations. By the way, if you've launched a new initiative, created new member services, or updated your governance structure and are seeing great results, I want to hear your story, and so do my listeners. I'd love to have you as a guest. Go to podcast.matrixgroup.net and apply to be on Associations Thrive. Now let's dive into this week's show. Today, I'm speaking with Jennifer Abril, President and CEO of the Society of Chemical Manufacturers and Affiliates, or SOCMA. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Joanna, thank you so much for inviting me.
Jennifer, tell us about SOCMA.
SOCMA is a fabulous organization. We are 103 years old. As you said, we represent chemical manufacturers, and specifically, we represent specialty chemical manufacturers. We have 150 members and growing. I've been fortunate to be with the organization now in this role for just about 8 years.
Amazing. Jennifer, what is a specialty chemical manufacturer? What does that mean?
So our folks that do specialty chemicals do the really interesting, new, innovative work that the chemical industry needs in order to make products effective and make their applications in their end products work better. So a lot of our manufacturers do custom design work for other companies, or they provide highly specialized materials that are critically important to the end product. So we typically don't make chemical products and then look for somebody to sell them to. Usually, someone's coming to us and say, hey, I need something to make this work faster, more efficiently, more effectively. What can you do to help me improve this end product? And that's what our members do. They bring technical expertise and the manufacturing capabilities to support other companies.
Jennifer, it sounds like they do R&D for some of the other manufacturers, or they're contract manufacturers. And do they do small batch or do they do large scale manufacturing, or both?
Yeah, great question. And you're spot on with that. We do provide services for other companies, and mostly they are in small batches.
My son, my oldest son, is really, really into cars, and he's really into the paint.
Okay.
And we were listening to some podcast where the BASF guy was talking about why 60% of the cars these days are either black, white, or gray.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow, BASF makes the paint, apparently, or they decide on the colors. So BASF would not be a member?
BASF could be a member, but usually it's their specialty chemical division that would be the member. And then we would be also doing custom work for them, primarily around, in the case of a paint, we may not make the color. That's the pigments group that we work with.
Different association.
Yep, different association, but allied with us. But we might do things around adhesion or UV blocking or other types of protective coatings, anything like that that would, again, make the product perform better in its final form.
So what's an awesome thing that you've seen recently from a member?
Well, I was just visiting with my chair, and her company is a family-owned company. And I always love her story because it's very relatable. Just earlier this year, I had to have a filling in my tooth, and she makes the products that actually go into dental fillings and are able to harden under the UV light that your dentist would use to harden your filling. So things like that, things that cure under UV light is a specialty of theirs. So you might find her products in nail polish, gel nail polish. You might find her products in any kind of an Apple product that you might have. And she's also gotten recently into semiconductors and also things that are 3D printed, where you'd have to have a layer and then make sure that it's hardened, and then another layer and make sure that hardens. So that's just an example. But between the BASF example and the UV blocking or UV light hardening, you can start to get a feel for how our members do some really interesting and unique services.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like your members do a huge range
of
products across industries.
That's right. We do things in all kinds of different performance areas, whether that's in paints and coatings, soaps and detergents, cosmetics, anything that has to do with fuel and fuel additives, pharmaceutical ingredients, agricultural products. Another neat example is one of my members makes a product that helps the fertilizer adhere and stay on a leaf for farming through a rainstorm, so it doesn't wash away.
Aha, that's why you were with Corey Rosenbush last week.
That's exactly right. That's true.
And listeners, Corey Rosenbush from the Fertilizer Institute was on the podcast a few months ago. I'll put a link in the show notes. That was a phenomenal interview.
Yeah. Corey and I share a couple of joint members. Yep. Your point still remains. It's a very diverse industry. We have specialty chemicals that go into everything.
Wow.
So we represent lots of different industries and end products.
Well, we're going to get into the things that you are doing to thrive, and thriving you are as an association. But before we do that, let's talk about your journey. So how do you get to be president and CEO of SOCMA?
It's an interesting story because I don't have a science background. I happen to, like most Washington, D.C. stories, I worked for an organization that took me into the world of associations that I was unfamiliar with. But my first association position was at the American Chemistry Council. And I was working there for quite a while, doing a lot of engagement work alongside of SOCMA. So they were a good partner to us, and I knew quite a few people there. So I actually went from the American Chemistry Council to SOCMA years ago, and I ran a department for SOCMA for a few years, ended up moving into running the Fragrance Association's trade organization for a while. And then there was an opportunity to come back to SOCMA, which had always been a special place for me. And I had the pleasure of being asked to join as their president and CEO. So I am a returning employee to SOCMA. So this is my second tour of duty here.
Interesting that in those three organizations, you were with chemicals and you were in manufacturing.
Yes, chemicals and manufacturing, neither of which I had ever expected would be the crux of my professional story. But yeah, I found myself here and I've really enjoyed every moment of it.
Jennifer, what's it like to leave an organization and then come back?
To be honest, I thought that I hadn't finished my time at SOCMA when I left the first time. I left for an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And then it turns out that the types of businesses that I was representing in the fragrance industry also do batch chemistry or batch formulations on behalf of other companies, on behalf of brands. And so it was a real correlation between what my last position was and what I'm doing here at SOCMA. What I really like about it is the breadth of companies that I work with. We have almost a third with privately owned companies, companies that are large multinationals that are public companies, and those that are private equity owned.
Oh,
So we've got a real spread of ownership types and people who've been in this sector for a very long time, but they're very entrepreneurial and they're very agile and they think quickly on their feet and they're very business oriented. And all of that is a real driver for me.
well, Jennifer, you have another hat, a really big and important hat, and that's chair of the board of advisors of the Council of Manufacturing Associations for the National Association of Manufacturers, or NAM. And NAM is a giant, prominent, really influential trade association, and you're chair of, I guess, another organization within NAM. So tell us about that, and how'd you get that position?
Thank you for asking about that. I'm quite proud to be the chair of the Council of Manufacturing Associations. It's been a group that has been consequential to my professional development for a lot of years. I want to say that I personally have been a member of the Council of Manufacturing Associations for at least 15 years. But this is a group of 200 trade associations that are all working for advancing US-based manufacturing. And the board is about 20 people large. We take our job very seriously on trying to advance policies that are good for our memberships, that are common to our memberships, and that will amplify the work of the National Association of Manufacturers. And so there's a real strong partnership built there. I'm very proud of this work. And this group is focusing on sharing good practices with each other, looking for opportunities to strengthen policy around US manufacturing. And we're also looking at identifying long-term or future trends that could affect all of our individual membership bases. So we really have three different areas that we look at. One is around trying to support each other with best practices with running manufacturing-based trade associations, also around advocacy for the manufacturing community, and then also around looking at future trends that are going to commonly affect our members, like AI and others.
Wow. So you're running basically two organizations, or running one and serving as board chair of the other one. What kind of time commitment is it to be board chair of another large organization with 200 members?
Well, I have a fabulous partner at the NAM named Shanzia Thompson. She's the executive director of our group, and she does a fabulous job of shouldering the burden of running the day-to-day. But we have a very good partnership. We try to think together around how we can be positioning the CMA to be as effective in the future as it is currently, and what more can we be doing. So really a lot of this is around positioning of CMA for the future.
Wow. All right. Well, let's talk about SOCMA and the things that you're doing to thrive. And Jennifer, you say that SOCMA has three pillars: B2B networking, advocacy, and safety. So let's start with B2B networking. What's new and different in that area?
We do a number of things. As I mentioned, we're looking for how we can support other companies in their product development. So what's difficult in our world, in our sector, is trying to find that needle in the haystack that has just the right technical expertise, with just the right equipment, that has just the right availability to do my project. And trying to put those business partnerships together is really hard. So SOCMA has, for a very long time, been a place where the industry comes to find other businesses that could be partners for them. We are fortunate that we are a trusted matchmaker, if you will. We've done a couple of different things. One that you've helped us with on our own website, which is providing a database or a list of capabilities, a filterable list of capabilities, so that when a procurement manager from another company is looking to see who's got what kind of capacity or what their strengths are or what kind of equipment they have or technical certifications, they can put those filters in and start to refine versus Googling. So that quickens the pace.
Right. And this directory allows you to really filter pretty deeply.
It does.
This isn't just like search by company. This is a whole lot of fields.
It's a lot of fields, and it's been really, really useful, particularly early stage projects where you're trying to just get a feel on whether or not there are companies out there that could do this job for you. So we found that from a procurement point of view, that is a very strong place that we provide a service. We also do what we call a lead generation service called lead sheets. And in this case, we have, let's say, a large chemical company that wants to find a business partner that can make a certain chemistry for them. They will have a project and they may have a hard to source project. So oftentimes they'll come to SOCMA and we say, okay, well, let's go through. We have actually a template that SOCMA developed and let's talk with you about it. It's a very quick 2-page form, effectively, that my staff will talk with the requesting company, talk them through what are they looking for, and then we put together a QC'd form that will say, okay, I need these raw materials with these technical certifications under this pressure and with this kind of a timeline in this geography. And then as we develop the scope of the project, we will send it out to all of our members at one time, all of our manufacturing members, and let them have a go at whether or not this project works for them.
Wow.
We call this our lead sheets, and we're up to 270 leads. We know that about 80% of these leads end up in some kind of discussion between the requesting company and our members that respond saying, yes, I'm interested in pursuing this project. So we let them work out the details about the project itself. So we really become the conduit for finding each other. But it has been designed in such a way that this 2-page form can be skimmed in a minute or less. And our manufacturing members will say, yep, I can do this, or no, I can't. And if they do, then they raise their hand and we provide their name back to the requester. The most interesting thing about it is that the requesting company, their name is masked.
Oh.
Because we really want the project to stand on its merits, not that there's a very large company you've always wanted to get into business with.
It could also be a confidential project.
That's true. That's absolutely true. So it's worked very, very well. In terms of success rate, it's anecdotal. So our understanding is it's about 55% of the time we have actually made it a successful match. Sometimes the project is so difficult.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
55% going to your members?
Yeah. And then also about 80% of those end up in some kind of discussions, which we also know have started relationships that end up maybe not with this project, but have enabled a subsequent project. So we do know that we are driving new business to our SOCMA members.
Jennifer, how do these companies find you or know about you to know that you have this product called lead sheets? Because they're not necessarily members, right?
No, you don't have to be a member to put in a lead. And in fact, it's a member benefit. You can only see the lead and respond to the lead if you're a member.
If you're a member, of course. And do the companies submitting lead sheets, do you charge them for this?
We don't.
Wow.
And the most interesting thing about that is we know that we are leaving money on the table. This could be a non-dues revenue source. But in discussions with our members, they have said, I don't want to get stuck in somebody's accounts payable when I could be doing this project for them. I don't want SOCMA getting stuck in an accounts payable at some very large company and you holding on to a lead when there's business to be had.
Right.
So we have worked this in to just facilitate quickly as many partnerships as we can find.
Wow, that is amazing. I think there's one more thing that you're doing in this area of matchmaking. And by the way, at Matrix, we talk about how trade associations are basically in the corporate dating business often, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So you're like Match.com for
Prime example, match.com right here.
But you had a show that we actually worked on. You sold it, but you recently purchased a show.
Yeah. What we've realized is that we had a very large trade show that became all consuming for our organization. We sold that in 2005 for a variety of reasons, which we thought at the time was a good idea. But what we learned later on is that we really sold that huge value proposition component and that trust. The industry really needed a place where they could trust an entity to help them find their business partners. And we did not realize how consequential we were to that experience. So we sold the show. And when we sold the show, we didn't realize how much that would affect the industry and affect us as our ability to support our segment of the chemical sector. We had to wait out our non-compete. And once we did that, we decided we were going to get back in the show business after doing some surveying and things like that, which we did. And we ended up purchasing a show from an independent show organizer. And it has put us right back on the path that we needed. And it has really reinvigorated the organization. It's not the only thing we do, but we do know that it's a unique offering that nobody else in our arena provides, is a way to have an all year round lead generation opportunity and partnership engagements through a trade association where you have a lot of trust.
Well, all the things work together, the directory, the lead sheets, and the trade show. Everything is you facilitating these introductions and relationships.
Exactly. And then we've even taken those lead sheets and done them in person effectively at our show. So that's another way that we get the word out, is we've been able to have some of the customers or the potential customers provide lead sheets at the show so that they're quickening their pace when they walk around the show floor looking for suppliers.
Oh my God. And then if you're not at the show, you're missing out on those opportunities.
Correct.
Wow. Well, let's turn to advocacy because that's the second pillar. And you said to me during the prep that your members have some really unique characteristics that make compliance sometimes with government regs complicated. And so a big part of your advocacy is really educating the regulators. What does this mean?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So most regulators assume that there's a chemical plant or there is a facility of some sort, a manufacturing facility, and they make the same thing all day long, in and out every day. We don't. We change our batches regularly, sometimes the same day, but certainly daily and weekly. And so when you're dealing with that many different types of material handling or moving things in and out of a plant, using the same piece of equipment, washing it out, doing a new batch, the regulations don't apply as neatly and succinctly. And so what we've always needed to do is emphasize the uniqueness of low volume materials like we have, and also the batch complication. That is always a struggle for us. For example, when you're looking at things like sustainability metrics, the objective typically is to drive down, let's say, your emissions. But when you're doing batch materials for a diverse range of products, this year you just may happen to have some clients that have very energy intensive processes, but next year maybe not.
So it's hard to compare your numbers from year to year because of your clients.
Exactly. It is also hard to compare across our entire membership because they serve so many different types of end product uses. So it's been a challenge for us. And that is what keeps us in business from an advocacy standpoint, is always trying to explain the unique ways that they hit either a specialty material because of a low volume exemption, for example, or if the regulation assumes a continuous process versus a batch process.
So if you have an OSHA inspector who comes to visit your plant, you could be doing completely different things when they come the next time from one visit to another. So it's hard for them to really do a comparison.
Absolutely.
Ah,
That happens all the time when you're talking inspections, whether that's OSHA, whether that's EPA, whether that's DEA. People are moving materials in and out. They're literally moving equipment. They may have to reset part of the plant to do a brand new process. They might have to disassemble effectively and then reassemble in a different type of way to accommodate somebody's project. And this happens regularly. I jokingly say that they're like Lego plants,
yeah. So, Jennifer, what's the advocacy component here? What do you want the regulators to know about your members so that they do what?
We want them to not assume that there's a one size fits all method here. Oftentimes, this hits us hardest around EPA regulations. And so when we are faced with, say, fence line monitoring or something along those lines, just the same way as somebody who steps on the scale every day, you might go up and down, but you take an average. That's the same sort of thing that we try to emphasize, is that we do a lot of different processes that will affect our outputs. And so thematically, we absolutely want to be in compliance, and sensible regulations are fine with us, but take into consideration the complexity and the uniqueness of a plant who is designed to change over as frequently and as commonly as we do.
Well, let's go to the third pillar, which is safety. Is that complicated by the fact that your members are working in small batches with different chemicals for different industries?
The interesting thing is that it makes it very hard to automate. So there's not a ton of automation in our plants.
You can't have robots doing the work because it's always different and they're changing out.
Always different. I always use, for non-chemists, the idea of your kitchen. So you use the same pots and pans every day to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you wash them in between, but you don't make the same thing all day long. You don't make the same meals every day. And if you do, you're going to wash them out and make them again. Very similar process here. And so the only thing that possibly could be automated in your own family kitchen is maybe olive oil or some salt and pepper, right?
Right.
It's around the edges, the margins. And so it's really difficult. So from an automation standpoint, challenging. And that puts a lot of pressure on trying to find labor. And so when you go to labor, you're talking about people called operators, chemical operators, that are literally operating the equipment. So it's very difficult to find them. It takes a lot of physical stamina. Sometimes people are working in an outdoor environment. So it's hard to find and keep chemical operators. So we do a lot of training and retraining. You always have to bring new people on. So we have done a lot of work when it comes to safety of the equipment, and then also training. We have at SOCMA a chemical operator training program, which not only has different learning styles and quizzes and testing that goes into it, but also we have animations of the equipment that will have a cutaway, and you can see inside the equipment and where is the fluid going and where is the pressure coming from, so that they actually know more about the equipment that they're working on. And that provides a safer foundation for their ability to run the plant.
Well, Jennifer, I was on your website earlier, and the homepage says that you've gotten 12 new members in the first quarter of 2024, which I know is a large number for a trade association. So it sounds like the pillars are working.
Yes, we are quite proud of being able to see and hit the nail on the head when it comes to identifying the important areas of our work that are resonating with the specialty chemical sector.
Jennifer, with all the success, you're currently doing some planning with your board to kind of rethink member value. So tell us about that process.
Yeah, so it's very exciting. We have our pillars, they are working. That has been part of our planning process to get us here. And we know that what we're doing in our current pillars is valued by our sector. But what I'm looking at is a lot of changing dynamics. We have a lot of reshoring that's coming back to the US. So customers are bringing their projects that were being done overseas. They're coming back to the US. We're happily gaining some market share and some good competitive opportunities. So with so much changing within our sector, I am trying to plan for 5 years ahead. So we are developing a strategic planning process that's going to take us to SOCMA 2030. And the aim when we get to SOCMA 2030 is that in addition to being a good value proposition where we are today, that membership in SOCMA must be a business imperative.
Wow.
So we want to put a laser focus on making the services and the products and our offerings at SOCMA so valuable that it would be to especially chemical companies' detriment to not be a SOCMA member. So that's where we're headed.
Man, that is bold. Love it. So that then there's buzz everywhere and there's an awareness and an understanding within the entire space that you got to be at SOCMA.
That's the aim. That is the aim.
Wow. Okay. With all this bold thinking and all this success, what does 2024 look like and what are you looking forward to in 25? And I can't even believe we're starting to think about 2025.
Yeah. And this is coming up pretty fast. So we're doing a lot of planning. We have a lot of milestones that we're hitting this year, 20 years for one program, 5+ years for our training program, another 5 years for our lead generation service. So this is a year where we're doing a lot of taking stock, looking at what's been working, what can we do, what can we refresh, how can we reframe, reaffirm. So a lot of good planning is happening in 2024. Roll up your sleeves, make an honest assessment of where we are and where we could be taking our existing programs. And then for 2025, it's really all systems go on that new plan. So lots of good spade work being done in 2024 so that we can launch into 2025 with a very clear frame of mind.
Jennifer, this has been an amazing interview. I can't wait to have you back in 2025 so you can tell us about the planning that you did for 24 and the year you're looking forward to. Thank you so much for sharing everything.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to everything that's to come.
Thanks for listening to Associations Thrive. We're so glad to have you here. You know, my personal mission and the mission of my company, Matrix Group International, is to help associations and nonprofits increase membership, generate revenue, and thrive in the digital space. I want to hear stories of how your organization is thriving in today's challenging landscape. Please apply to be on my show by going to podcast.matrixgroup.net. By the way, do you need help with a digital initiative? Maybe it's a website redesign, a new membership database, or a hybrid meeting that you're planning. I'd love to connect with you. Please visit the Matrix Group website at matrixgroup.net. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Associations Thrive. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating, post a comment, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Bye!